Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam Prapta Sakalyana Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Baditramadhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Ramanchakam Pasu Taranga Bhaju Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Dirmajanado Shri Juktasya bhaktamsa neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadu Satvana Truptam Haribhakta Sangam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadu Satvana Truptam Kritvaiva Trupti Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradhikama Dhabayara Para Madhura Leela Gunarupanamna Shiradhikama Abhayara Para Madhurya Leela Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Ne kunjayuno ratikeli siddhai Yayali veri jukti apekshaniya Ne kunjayo Tatratidaksha Ativalabhasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sakshad Haridvena Shamasta Shashre Ruktastathava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakshad Haridvena Pintu Pravodya Priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Kintu Pravarja Priya eva tasya. Yasya prasadam Bhagavat prasadam Yasya prasadam Nagati kutapi Yasya prasada Jayam stubam tasya Yasa trisandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Dayam stuvam tasya yasatri sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Deshata Rine Nam. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Tana Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hariyaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Hare Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudam, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, हरि गुरु वैष्णव भगवत गीता श्री रूप सनातन भतर गुना श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दासर गुना हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे निताय गौर हरिबो 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 निताय गौर हरिबो 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 निताय गौर हरिबो जय विश्वपार परम सप्रभाजक आचार्य सूत्र सरसी शिमार His Divine Grace, Abhocharavina Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya, Vaishnava Siromani Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai, Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara ki jai, Shri Rup Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Namacharya Shri Hari Rasta Kurji ki jai, Ananta Kuja Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai, प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमान गौरांग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावृणावतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमदान हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहत निदांग ट्रांसलेटर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपना राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय जलोश श्री राधा माधव की जय श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप चक्र धाम की जय परम करुणा श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मृत देव सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय श्री मथुरा रानी की जय सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौर हरि परमानंदे all glories to assembly bodies all glories to assembly bodies all glories to assembly bodies all glories to Shri Guru Shri Guru Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Praladaladudaine Praladaladudaine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Shilatankanakalaye तो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो ये तो यामि ततो नरसिंहो ये तो यामि ततो नरसिंहो भये नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो हे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे सिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरे नाकाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशभद्रिता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव करकमलवरे नाकाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशभतीत नरहरिरूपम् जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद नरसिंहदेव भगवान की प्रहलाद महाराज की जय
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवत्तये नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवत्तये नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवत्तये नमः। Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha. Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhinasi. Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhinasi.
Je tomar sharan loy, tara vancha purna hoy.
Chitamara Saranala Taravancha Purna.
Kripa kori koro tare, Vrindavan vasi.
Tumi kripa kori karatare Vrindavana vasi.
Moraiya bilas, bilas kunj diyo vas.
Moraye Vira Vira Kunje Diyava.
Nayane hiribo sada, yugal rup rasi. এই নিবেদন ধারো সকিরানো গাত করো, সেবাধিকার দিয়ে করো নিজ দাসী। দীনা কৃষ্ণ দাসে কই না মোরা হয়।
Inna Krishna Dasaka Hey Namora.
শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দা প্রেমে সদা না বাসী।
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sarayana Vasi.
শ্রী রাধা গোবিন্দা প্রেমে সদা না বাসী।
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Vasi.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे।
Yani Kani Sapapani Brahmayatyadikani Sa Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Yani kani sapapani brahmachari kani sa tani tani panasanti pradakshina pade pade.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Yani kani sapapani brahmachari kani sa tani tani panasanti pradakshina pade pade.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nittai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Piyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Piyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Piyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Oh Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to perform the service to Shri Radha. Whoever takes shelter of you, I wish is fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a forever confidentials of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Varanaya Krishna Prema, Bhagavate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namah. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds, millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in a street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of a sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaja Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I consider the moment to be like 12 years and more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri 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 Satam Ki. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for the propagation of the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. Consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as positive activity Karma Kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glories of holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be retentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna. Now let us offer a respectful obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They just all desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone,
and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Patraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmad Yasya Yato Niviyat Taratas Tesu Abhikasvara.
Janmadhyasya yatam vayaritaratascha tesva vigyasvara.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Niyatiyat Surayaha.
Tejo varimrida jata vinimajo jatrati sargomrisya.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Duhatam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
Dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyang param dhimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
all pervading personality of Godhead,
O all-pervading personality of Godhead,
offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
and a primeval cause of all causes,
the primeval cause of all causes,
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all
And he
manifestations.
is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is the only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahma,
the original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
of water sent to fire, land sent to water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are
I
unreal.
therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri
who is
Krishna,
eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental
which is
abode,
forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitruvotra.
Dharma prajita kaitavutra
Paramo nirmatsrilam satam.
paramo nirmasaranam satam
Vedyam vastavam atra vastu.
vedyam vastavam astra vastu
Shivadam tapa trayon mulanam.
shivadam taputrimulanam
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite.
Srimad Bhagavati Mahamuni Kriti
Kim va purir Ishwaraha.
Kimva Paririshvaraha
Sadyo hridi avrudhyate tra.
Sadyo Rudya Varudya Titra
Kriti bihi sususabhistakshanat.
Kritibi Shushushu Histatkyanat,
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are material
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truths,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those who are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity,
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
is sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively, submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam,
Nigama kapato kantam talam,
sukamakad amrita dravya samritam,
sukamakadam ritadrava sanditam,
pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Vivagatam Bhagavatam Rasamalayam,
muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha.
Mura Hurasikabu Vibhavuka.
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
the mature fruit of the desired truth of Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit, the desired tree of Vedic
It emanated
lords.
from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Shishvadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more
Although its
tasteful.
nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was all relishable,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse number 33. Aho Adan.
We haven't finished the prayers.
What?
We haven't finished the Mangala Charan.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna
Shramvatam Swakata Krishna
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Hridyantaksto Hi Abhadrani
Hridyantastu Hyabhadrani
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunoti Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
is itself righteous activity.
it is self-righteous
And
activity.
for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about
Lord
Krishna,
Krishna who's dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts
heart,
as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who continually engages in the hearing of him.
and purify the devotees who constantly engage in hearing of him.
Nasta presu abhadresu
Nasta praesha bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavate seva
bhagavati uttama sloke
bhagavati uttama sloke
bhaktir bhavati naistaki.
bhakti bhavati nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops his dormant
As
transcendental
he hears more
knowledge.
about the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye
kamalobhadayaschaye
cheta itar navidam
chita itarana viram
stitvam sattve prasidati.
stitam sadve prasira.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes free from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasanna manaso
Evam prasanna manaso
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangasya.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped away,
the devotee remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the devotee remains steady in position of good,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the sons of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hirdaya Grantis
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Siddhyante Sarva Samsaya
Chidyante Sarva Samshaya
Siyante Chasyakarmani
Yante Sacha Karmani
Justa Evatmanishvare.
Drusta Evadmaneshwari.
Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus the Bhakti Yoga severs the hard note of material
and enables
affection,
one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of samsham samamkam,
understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead.
understanding of the Supreme Absolute True Personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees
in Krishna consciousness
in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, text number 33. One second. Aho adharma palanam
Aho adharma palana
pivyam bali bhujam iva
Vivinam Bali Bhuja Iva
swamin yagaham yadasanam
Swamyanyangam Yadashanam
dwarapanam sunam iva.
Dwarapanam Sunamiva.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Brahmana's son, Sringi, said, "Oh, just look at the sins of the rulers who, like crows and watchdogs at the door, perpetrate sins against their masters, contrary to the principles governing servants." Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Brahmanas are considered to be the head and brains of the social body, and the Kshatriyas are considered to be the arms of the social body. The arms are required to protect the body from all harm, but the arms must act according to the directions of the head and the brain. That is a natural arrangement made by the Supreme Order, for it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that the four social orders or castes, namely the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and Sudras, are set up according to quality and work done by them. Naturally, the son of a Brahmana has a good chance to become a Brahmana by the direction of his qualified father. As a son of a medical practitioner has a very good chance to become a qualified medical practitioner. So the caste system is quite scientific. The son must take advantage of the father's qualification and thus become a Brahmana or medical practitioner, and not otherwise. Without being qualified, one cannot become a Brahmana or medical practitioner, and that is the verdict of all scriptures and social orders. Here in Shringi, a qualified son of a great Brahmana attained the required Brahminical power, both by birth and by training, but he was lacking in culture because he was an inexperienced boy. By the influence of Kali, the son of a Brahma became puffed up by Brahminical power, and thus wrongly compared Maharaj Parikshit to crows and watchdogs. The king is certainly the watchdog of the state in the sense that he keeps vigilant eyes over the border of the state for its protection and defense. But to address him as a watchdog is the sign of a less cultured boy. Thus, the downfall of the Brahminical powers began as they gave importance to birthright without culture. The downfall of the Brahmana caste began in the age of Kali. And since Brahmanas are the heads of the social order, all other orders of society also began to deteriorate. This beginning of Brahminical deterioration was highly deplored by the father of Shringi, as we will find. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So now these are two purports. Prabhupada is talking about, in the previous purport, Brahmana injustice, and now he's talking about the beginning of Brahminical deterioration. So it's a fact. It's a fact that in Kali Yuga, many Brahmanas who have the title of Brahmanas, who function like Brahmanas by performing ritualistic activity, but are not really qualified. They're qualified by saying mantras, but they're not qualified by the culture of a Brahmana. So this is a big point, the difference between technical proficiency and culture. And culture means, again I said, culture means how we do things. So that culture is based on, in the 13th chapter, 8th to 9th verse, manitvam, adamitvam, ahimsa santirajyavam. So that begins with amanitvam, with humility. And then the second thing is pridelessness. Amanitvam, adamitvam, ahimsa santirajyavam, acharya pasamam socham, staryam atma vinigraha. And then it goes to ahimsa, non-violence, and shantir, tolerance, and ahimsa santir, arjavam, honesty and simplicity. Then one accepts spiritual master, acharya pasamam. Socham, then one develops cleanliness internally and externally. Socham, acharya pasamam socham. Staryam atma vinigraha. Staryam, steadiness in devotional service. Atma vinigraha, and control the mind and senses. And that's not all. It continues. Indriyarteshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jaravyadi dukkadosana darshanam. So next is Indriyarteshu vairagyam. You have control of the senses, and vairagyam means that one does not one is renounced and is austere, and anahankara, one does not have false ego, and janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosana darshanam, and one understands the fault of birth, death, old age, and disease. And then asaktirana vismanga putradara digrahadesu nityam cha samachitatva istanistu papadisu. So this continues. The asaktir, one is not entangled, or freedom on, one is detached. Asaktir anaviswam ga, and there's freedom from entanglement with family. In other words, children, wife, home, and the rest, well, relatives and so forth. Therefore, the wife, the husband, children, and home and relatives and the rest. So that doesn't mean one gives these things up, but one develops detachment while doing all these things, and when the right time comes, there's no hesitation in giving them up completely. Right? And then after that, then you have the even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events. So this is all the culture. And then after that, there's detachment from the general mass of people, aspiring to live in a solitary place, and also completely dedicated to devotional service, and understanding the importance of self-realization and the philosophical search for the absolute truth. All this is culture. It's how you do things. And culture based on knowledge. So we need to develop this culture, not simply have technical proficiency. The technical proficiency without this culture will lead to demoniac life. Or, as it says here, the Brahminical deterioration. Now, Shringi's father, Samika Rishi, understood this, but the son didn't understand. Now, is it the fault of the father? That's an interesting point. Well, first of all, children are not supposed to take initiation from their father or mother. They're supposed to have now, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, did not take initiation from his father. His father told him to take initiation from Gaurkishore Babaji. Although he accepted his father as a Sikha guru, but he accepted to be trained in the culture of Krishna consciousness by his initiating Diksha Guru, Gaurkishore Babaji, who trained him in the culture of Krishna consciousness. So that's important because family relationships sometimes is too close to be objective, whereas when there's some little bit of distance, there's more objectivity. It doesn't mean that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wasn't a pure devotee. It just means that sometimes it's difficult to be completely objective when there's some bodily connection. But anyway, Sikha Guru and Diksha Guru are equal, so he equally accepted Gaurkishore Babaji and his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as his gurus. Okay, so this beginning of this deterioration of Brahminical culture is a serious thing because there's what you call trickle-down effect. It trickles down to all the varnas and all the ashramas by that deterioration. And what is that deterioration? Well, when a person becomes very proficient technically, there's a possibility, if they're not trained properly in the culture of Vaishnavism, they become puffed up. So, as they say in Greek tradition of drama and tragedy, who the gods want to destroy, first they make them proud. So, pride false pride is a very dangerous thing, and it'll lead to all other bad qualities like envy, hatred, and so forth. So one has to be trained not only to be materially and mechanically or technically expert, but also to be cultured. That's why Prabhupada does not call Krishna consciousness a religion. He calls it culture. So culture and religion, what is the difference? Religion, you often have what's called dogma, a set of principles that people have to follow rigidly, and oftentimes it leads to, if there's no culture, it becomes fanaticism. See? So philosophy without religion can be complete speculation. Religion without philosophy can be fanaticism. So we need to, or sentimentalism. So we need to teach the culture along with all the, let's say, technical knowledge of rituals and practices. Like, for example, one may decide to become very austere, and because of that, they become proud, like Durvasa Muni. Or one may become very opulent, and they become proud, like Daksha and others. So without the culture, there's one achieves an extreme position that is detrimental to actual advancement in spiritual life. So we see that Duryodhana and his father Dhritarashtra were confident to win the battle of Kurukshetra. Why were they so confident in the beginning? Because they had the numbers, right? Just like once when the Pope sent a message to Stalin and told him that, he should not be too cruel, I think something like that. And then Stalin's answer was, how many tanks does the Pope have? You see, because Stalin, by the end of World War II, had a lot of tanks, and they used these tanks to conquer Berlin and parts of Germany. And he had a lot of soldiers also, but he had a lot of armored tanks. So one becomes puffed up by material acquisitions and power and prestige, and sense gratification and evil. People become powerful by performing progressively horrendous acts of evil. And other people become powerful by performing progressive acts of austerity. And then other people become powerful by accumulating tremendous wealth. And other people become powerful by complete surrender to the Lord. So there's different techniques of becoming very powerful. But without the culture of Krishna consciousness, one can fall down because of that accumulation of power. So, therefore, Prabhupada explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 9th chapter, 22nd verse, he says, it's a verse spoken by Bhismadev, and he says, yet despite his being equally kind to everyone, he's talking about Krishna, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. Wow, people say, what? He was shooting arrows at Krishna and wounding him, and seemingly blood came out of his body. How can you say he's his most unflinching servitor? Well, because he was always affectionately thinking of the Lord his whole life, and he was a pure devotee. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Lord, the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, although equal to everyone, is still more inclined to his unflinching devotee, who is completely surrendered and knows no one else as his protector and master. Having unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord as one's protector, friend, and master, is the natural condition of eternal life. A living entity is so made by the will of the Almighty that he is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The opposite tendency is the cause of fall down. The living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint of misidentifying himself as fully independent to the Lord, fully independent to lord it over the material world. The root cause of all troubles is there in false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord in all circumstances. So, by the accumulation of power, whether it's through acts of evil, through knowledge, through renunciation, or even through devotional service, can be detrimental if one does not have the culture of Krishna consciousness. One can have the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, but maybe not the full culture of it. Of course, if you're Krishna conscious, that implies that you have the culture also. But what is that culture? It's a culture that we're going to be very specific about it. Complete dependence on the Lord. Now, that's not an easy thing when you're living in the material world, because in the material world, many people or most people are intoxicated by a feeling of independence. And dependency is considered a negative thing. It's just like America was founded by pilgrims who came here looking for religious freedom from the persecution. Christians were persecuting other Christians who were not of their particular brand of Christianity. So people were willing to risk their lives, cross the Atlantic Ocean, which is not an easy thing. Even today, it's not an easy thing. The Atlantic Ocean is very turbulent. Look what happened to Prabhupada. He got seasick right away. He had 2 heart attacks trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean. Right? So imagine 500-600 years ago trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And then when you get to the destination, there's nothing there except forests and wild animals and Indians, some of them who are maybe friendly and some of them who are antagonistic. They might kill you because they don't know who you are or what you are. So they did that all because they wanted religious freedom. And once they got here, many of them died the first year or 2 because they had to fend for themselves. There was no Costco, there was no Walmart, there was no this thing, that thing. Nothing, no pharmacy, nothing. And they brought seeds with them. But of course, if they landed in the wintertime, they couldn't plant the seeds. So how were they going to live? Well, they had to live by hunting or just foraging for herbs or things in the forest, and then accepting some generosity from the natives, the native Indians, who may have helped them a little bit. Or they might have had to fight with the native Indians because they were antagonistic. They didn't know who they were, who these new people were. So you see, they were willing to risk everything, and they were religious people. And they prayed on the ship to arrive at the destination, prayed when they got off that they got there safely, and they prayed that they could stay alive and find a means of sustenance in this new world, starting from scratch with nothing. Right? Okay, so the opposite tendency of placing oneself in a condition of absolute dependence is the cause of fall down. The idea that misidentifying oneself as independent. Well, you get help to misidentify yourself as independent by modern education and modern philosophy, just like the modern existentialist philosophers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre and other French and English and German philosophers. They're all saying that you are independent, that you can't depend on any God. Even if there is a God, he's not involved with the material world. The material world is governed by laws and natural laws, and therefore it's like a jungle. The big fish eats the little fish, and therefore you have to be heroically independent. But this is a bunch of nonsense. But yet they use big language, and foolish people believe it. And they think that they are independent even if there is a God. And if there isn't a God, obviously you're independent, right? So both ways, they're convinced to be independent. So the living entity has this tendency of falling down by dint or by virtue of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over material nature. So material nature is for us to exploit. That's what most people think. So they exploit gold mines, and they exploit factories, and they exploit the internet, and they exploit this, and they exploit that. They exploit people. There's slavery. There's this, there's that. All about one person exploiting other persons, one person exploiting animals. One, like you have a chicken farm, you're exploiting the chickens. You have a beef farm, you're exploiting the cows. So this idea that people have free rein to exploit and take advantage of the material nature, it's the cause of fall down. The root cause of all troubles is there in false egotism. One must draw towards the Lord in all circumstances. The appearance of Lord Krishna at the deathbed of Bhismaji is due to his being, Bhismaji, an unflinching devotee of the Lord. Arjuna had some bodily relation with Krishna because the Lord happened to be his maternal cousin, but Bhisma had no bodily relation with Krishna. Therefore, the cause of attraction was due to the intimate relation of the soul. Yet because the relation of the body is very pleasing and due to the intimate, very pleasing and natural, the Lord is more pleased when he is addressed as the son of Maharaj Nanda, the son of Yasoda, the lover of Radharani. This affinity by bodily relation with the Lord is another feature of reciprocating loving service with the Lord. Bhismadeva is conscious of the sweetness of transcendental humor, and therefore he likes to address the Lord as Vijaya Sake, Partha Sake, etc., exactly like Nanda Nandana or Yasoda Nandana. The best way to establish our relation in transcendental sweetness is to approach him through his recognized devotees. One should not try to establish the relation directly. There must be a medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. Well, up until the Protestant Revolution, that medium for the Christians was the Pope. But because of the deterioration of the papacy and corruption and things like that, a whole group of Christians revolted against the church and declared their independence of the Pope and independence of any intermediary. They said, we can go directly to God through the Bible. What happened? Instead of having one church, now they have hundreds and thousands of churches, all with different interpretations of the Bible. You see what happened? It opened the door, the Pandora's box, and giving everyone the opportunity to speculate. Because what did the Protestants do? They said, we reject the authority of the Pope. We don't accept that he is God's messenger in this world, and he has the absolute word, as the Catholics believe. And they said, we don't need any intermediary. We have the Bible, and we can just read the Bible and understand what it means. Well, yeah, well, this one guy in the United States read the Bible, and it said In the end times, they will dance with snakes, poisonous snakes. There's a verse like that in the Revelation of St. John. So he started a religion based on dancing with poisonous snakes. I'm not kidding you. You can look it up. You can look it up right now. That's in the southern states, North Carolina, South Carolina, down to Texas and places like that. And the pastor has a guitar and he's strumming on the guitar, and they're singing some song. And then when a person feels that the Spirit of God has entered into them, they start dancing. And then there's a box on the dais where the preacher speaks from, and there's a box there, and the person dances around the box, and they're strumming on the guitar, and everyone's singing, and all of a sudden they open the box, stick their hand in, and pull out a poisonous snake, a rattlesnake, and they start dancing with the rattlesnake. And even kids do this, right? And if you get bit by the rattlesnake, well, that means you didn't have complete faith in God, but they're not allowed to take the child or the person, the adult, to the hospital. They all sit around and continue singing. Either the person is revived or the person dies. You see it? What does it say? Let's read it out over here. This is very interesting. See? Speak into the microphone directly. See?
So this is a news about 2014. The snake handling Pentecostal pastor
Pentecostal, okay,
Yeah.
I left that out.
dies from the snake bite. So the snake handling pastor of a small Pentecostal church in Kentucky died after being bitten by
Connecticut?
Kentucky.
Kentucky, yeah.
Yeah. By a rattlesnake during a weekend church service. So it talks about specifically that the Jamie Coots, the pastor of the Full Gospel
They call
Tabernacle,
it full gospel.
Full Gospel
But
Tabernacle.
you spell fool, F-O-O-L.
In Jesus' name, in Middleborough, Kentucky, was handling a rattlesnake during a service when he was bitten on his right hand Saturday night. So it talks about the snake that bit him. We have been carrying him to the church for about 4 months. It has been carried hundreds of times, all kinds of times, but handled all kinds of times. But now it is your time to go. It's just your time to go. So
Yeah. It's God's mercy. You got bit by the snake. This is
Yeah.
all nonsense, you see. It's all based on, it started with the Protestant Revolution against the Catholic Church. And then the Protestants said, you can have a direct relationship with God simply by reading the Bible. You don't need any intermediary. What's Prabhupada saying here? He says, one should not try to establish the relationship directly with Krishna. There must be a medium which is transparent and competent to lead us to the right path. In other words, you need Shiksha and Diksha gurus. So we see how as soon as you give license to people to be completely independent, to feel themselves independent, and they can go directly to God or directly to any goal in life without anybody else intervening, including the government, then all hell breaks out. All kinds of speculation starts and everything deteriorates. So as soon as the license for speculation is given, then everything deteriorates. So, Prabhupada says that Jiva is most happy when placing himself in a condition of absolute dependence. The root cause of all troubles is in false egoism. And he says the opposite tendency of not wanting to be completely dependent is the cause of fall down. The living entity has the tendency of falling down because of misidentifying himself as fully independent to lord it over the material world. Everybody is being taught now to be fully independent, to lord it over the material world. Everybody's being taught that. You have a right to pursue whatever goal you want, and you can reach that goal by study and hard work. No mention of God, no mention of God, no mention of dependence on the mercy of God. You see, whereas and throughout Prabhupada's purports and throughout the Bhagavatam, this complete dependence on God is the most exalted position. And that was the position of Parikshit Maharaj. As we explained, he could have stopped Shringi's curse if he wanted to. He had the power to do that, but he didn't. He completely depended on the goodwill of the Lord. He understood that this is an exceptional situation that he was placed into, and he completely surrendered to the Lord. And of course, he went back to Godhead. So we'll stop right there. This is a big subject. We've talked about it a little bit before, but now the next couple of days I'm going to talk very deeply about this complete dependence on the Lord. Are there any questions or comments?